Okay, you guys, what is up? This is OJ Senpai here today to review Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic, chapter 222. This chapter of Magi. Okay, so it takes place 5 years after the last chapter, where Solomon is 17 years old now, Sheba 17, pretty much everyone else got older, and this chapter mainly was a setup chapter. It wasn't anything particularly important, except for a few couple of things. But before I get into the chapter, let me start with just the basics. Artwork, story progression, and characterization. Okay, also artwork. It was really good, especially to when Sheba was fighting those big boobed gin looking people. I have no clue what they were, but apparently, like the artwork is really good in this chapter, so I'm gonna give it a good. When it came to story progression, this is a setup chapter, but it's mainly leading into the next chapter where we're finally gonna find out about this species that came before humans and magicians. So story progression is going to be good, and characterization. We see a little bit into Sheba that we never actually saw in the previous chapters in this almost around arc. But I'm gonna get to that later. But I say that that's going to be good. Yeah, good plus. So overall, this like everything with the basics, it's overall a good plus. So now let's get into the chapter. Um, so this chapter occurs 5 years after last chapter, where we get introduced to these divine staffs, get introduced to Solomon and his friends, and of Sheba. And basically, the chapter starts off with Sheba actually fighting off against these magicians. And we see her, she's progressed not only in power, but also in maturity. She's a lot more mature. She actually considers Solomon to be like her inspiration. Not only her inspiration, but also her crush. And she also like she shows her power to these new species. I don't know what the species. I don't remember whether or not they named like what the species was, but apparently she was trying to recruit this species into the resistance. And so she was like, "Yeah, join our stuff, join our join our cause." And the species one, I think one of the female ones, they asked, "Well, why should we join your resistance? Because aren't humans completely different from us?" And basically, she explains the same thing that Solomon did back when he had that speech to the other species that joined the resistance back then. Like, oh, we may be different in appearance, but we all favor the same thing, which is love. And at that point, basically they didn't join. And then we see Sheba come back. She meets up with Solomon, the rest of Solomon's friends, Ugo. I get. Is it no? Not is it no? Garrus wasn't there. No, Aru. This really huge, like huge chested girl. I forgot what her name was, but basically she meets up with them, and they have pretty much just small talk. It wasn't really a lot of stuff. It was just like small talk. There was something important though, in which apparently magicians have the ability to slow down their aging, like slow down the process of aging. And I thought about it. Well, slow down and speed up. And I thought about it. In the last chapter where we saw Solomon, Solomon did not look um 12 years old. Because in this chapter he's 17, and according to last week's chapter, it's going to be like a 5 year time skip. So he didn't look 12 years old. He looked like a buff 15-year-old dude, but he didn't look 12. So I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that's them saying, oh well, someone back in the past he may have been 12 years old, but he looked like what 16 or 18 or 17. I don't know, but I don't know if that's a direct correlation to what Solomon looked like in the last chapter. We're not too sure, but it is a good type of tip information. We see some comedy. We find out that Ugo is 58 years old, which throws me off. Throws me off because Ugo he looks like he's in his 20s, like his mid 20s. But more information there, and then we go into the whole Sheba x Solomon conflict. Now, because people they asked her, oh well, you must like what's his name, Solomon a lot. And she's like, no, why would I like someone who's like a nagging father? I'm like, why are you flexing? But and then we see her and Solomon actually talk. And Solomon, we see him 5 years later. He looks older now. He looks a lot like Sinbad now, actually. And he talks to Sheba about how Sheba's too outgoing, too impulsive, and like he wants to protect her and stuff, like protect her from doing bad things. And she's like, "Oh, is it because you care for me?" He's like, "Nah, bro, nah, bro." He's like, "Nah, man, nah. I'm just telling you this stuff, and you can stop doing stupid shit." So she looks sad. She's like, "Oh no." I mean, this chapter was comedy heavy, but there was a lot of important stuff to it. Now we go into the whole thing with Sheba and Arba and Solomon. And Sheba walks into Solomon and Arba sword fighting or something like that, or sparring. Because it's weird though, because like Solomon has like a staff, but according to Solomon, Arba was the one who taught him how to fight with a sword. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait, what? But they have staffs, but it's whatever. Basically, Arba and Solomon are like fighting each other with like staffs and stuff. And Solomon and Arba loses, but she also calls Solomon young master. Now Solomon, and I think this is pretty cool. Solomon, not Solomon. Solomon, he doesn't want to be called by young master by his friends when he's not around the other species, because he mentions how his father, David, was referred to, what was that kind of person who wanted to be referred to as a god, but Solomon doesn't want that. Solomon wants to be treated as an equal, at least when it comes to his friends. And now the other species apparently are treating him as a god as well. So, according to Solomon, he wants Arba and the rest of his friends to just treat him as an equal. Just call him by his normal name, not Solomon Sama, not young master, not stuff like that. Just by his normal name. And I think that that's pretty damn cool because when it comes to Solomon's character, you could easily see him as the type of dude who's like, who acts like a god, who thinks like a god, and stuff like that, but he doesn't want to be considered to be a god. So I think that's pretty damn awesome. Now, when it comes to the whole Sheba thing, when Sheba saw what happened with Arba and what happened with them, like they were just like hanging out and stuff, just messing around, we see Sheba looking pretty sad. And I keep hearing this whole debate on whether or not where Gyoukuen comes into the mix. Because some people are saying that Gyoukuen might not even be a real name. Gyoukuen might have been like some kind of nickname to name herself after the whole Amatoran incident. Like, and that Gyoukuen could be either Sheba or Arba. I'm leaning towards Sheba, but Arba could be it as well. Like Arba could be Gyoukuen in disguise. She could be that Magi that like fucked up everything pretty much. But what I can say is that it could be either one of those two. But I really do have a suspicious feeling that Gyoukuen might not even be those two. It might be someone who's revealed later on. I'm not saying if that's true or whatever. I don't think it's true, but I have this suspicion that it might not be those two. It might be someone else. I don't know. I mean, and then there's a part I think I read on not Manga Stream, not Manga Stream, Manga Sky, and like she has like a mole like Arba does under her eye. I don't know. I mean, it could be either one of those too, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it could be someone else we haven't seen yet. And I guess it's because of the fact that when you read One Piece, you think, okay, always consider the unexpected. Always consider something to be like different. And like I mean with any story, but One Piece especially. So I have that like this mindset of okay, maybe this not these two, but it could be them. I don't know. But before I close this out, we find out apparently that the Magui is apparently becoming more and more heavy every single day or something like that. Like it's becoming more and more impure. And Ugo mentions this to Solomon. And Solomon mentions how, okay, because this is happening and because it could be a danger to the balance of the world, we're probably gonna have to talk to this guy. And apparently, this guy was part of a species that existed long before humans and magicians, and that he apparently is called the Origin Dragon. So there might be like some kind of species of dragon living on. Like there might have been like before Solomon's time, there might have been like some people who were like dragons and stuff. I don't know, but his name is the Origin Dragon. And Sheba remembers, I think it's Sheba. She remembers something about how she learned about it in church. So the Origin Dragon is obviously important. And at the end of the chapter, it mentioned that next week there's gonna be a huge reveal, like something really important, whether it has to do with Ilah, something like that. What happens, and that's important for next week. So this week overall was just a setup chapter. Um, I think this is kind of like the start of something bad to occur afterwards, and stuff like that. But overall, I'm gonna give this chapter a good plus. It was a good plus chapter, but that's my rating for it. Again, it was set up, but it's important set up for next week's chapter because apparently we're going to get something really interesting for next week. So rating was good plus. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you don't. Rate, comment, and subscribe. I'm Moji Senpai, and I'm out. Peace, guys.